It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio.
And online at SBNationLive.com.
Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Coach Nick.
Hey, sports fans, it's Coach Nick here. And another edition of the B-Ball Breakdown is upon you in your earballs, all across the internet, streaming on any kind of FM station that might be in your market, on SB Nation Radio. Glad to be here. I am the man with the plan behind the whole idea of B-Ball Breakdown. It's a YouTube channel, it's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's everything else, .com, with fantastic articles every day now analyzing the NBA. So definitely go over there and check that out. We have a great show coming up for you today, action-packed. We got Jeff Diependbrock, my man with the plan over at Georgia State University as the video coordinator there. And he has 2 draft picks to keep your eye on that got under the radar a little bit. And we're going to spotlight 2 of those guys who you should keep your eye on to see how they develop because they could really help with their teams. Dave DuFour joins us from the road as he's driving back the long trip from Montana all the way back to San Antonio. So we're going to talk with him about where LeBron is going and whether or not Nikola Jokic is worth his max contract that it looks like they're going to try and sign with him soon. Then we're going to bring on Paul Garcia to talk about the Kawhi Leonard situation in San Antonio. Lots of moving parts, lots of gossip and innuendo to go through to figure out what's the real deal and what's really going to happen with him. On the video front, I did an awesome video for the top 3 steals of the draft. 3 guys who are really great values for their teams. They're going to come in and help, hopefully right away, but even in the next few years if they develop like they should, where they're picked, it's a steal, grand larceny even. So definitely don't miss that over on our YouTube channel. It's great stuff. What else do we have to talk about today? We also have a shooting video that you can get for free because when I'm not breaking down the NBA, I am sitting there staring and analyzing and breaking down the jump shot and how you should be shooting, how you should be scoring. So I have a really great free video that you guys can get your hands on. And it's not a hard thing to remember as far as what link you need to go to, but it's bit.ly, so it's bit.ly/bballshooting. So bit.ly/bballshooting will get you to a place where you can get a free video on how to score better. And from there, you can get on the mailing list and get a lot more tips every day. So don't go anywhere, sports fans. We've got a lot coming up on the show. And this is Coach Nick, and you're listening to the B-Ball Breakdown.
It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio. Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Coach Nick.
And sports fans, we are back. As always, it's Coach Nick here. This is the B-Ball Breakdown, talking NBA. We've had a lot of interesting picks from the NBA draft, and lots of coverage has gone on across the entire NBA sphere. We did some podcasts already. So don't miss Paul Garcia coming on and talking about that from ESPN, giving us some insights into some of the top picks. But I thought it'd be cool to do a little of an analysis on some of the picks we might not be that familiar with, and some guys are not talking about too much. So no person better to bring on the show than Jeff Diependbrock, my man with a plan over at Georgia State University as the video coordinator, who watches arguably more film than I do. Let's bring him on. Jeff, thank you for joining us today.
Well, first of all, I don't know about that, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you stayed in my house for a couple of days. You saw, you know, I don't know, man. I tend to think that if your title is video coordinator, then you might watch. You're watching film when I'm taking my daughter down to camp in San Pedro for 2 hours.
That's fair. That's fair.
So, yes, it's like in that scene with in He Got Game when Denzel Washington is yelling at his teenage kid. No one else. Is Michael Jordan out here practicing in the midnight, in the middle of the night?
Right.
Same thing. So, anyway, well, let's get into some of the players we want to talk about who might not be talked about so much. I know that you have your eye on a couple guys that really should probably get some more eyeballs. So, who do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, so I saw 2 guys in each, in the total draft, one in the first and one in the second. I thought that were really interesting under the radar picks. First one would be in the first round, and that'd be Amari Spellman, who went 30th overall to the Hawks out of Villanova.
Aha. So we know him, we know Villanova because they've had a couple of enchanted runs to the finals and winning the NCAA tournament under Jay Wright. So
Right.
I think the one thing we know about that program is it does a terrific job with player development. Those guys
Right.
should be ready to go out the gate in the NBA from day one, right?
Right, yeah. So Jay Wright is probably the best in the country at developing just players in general. I mean, Spellman is a guy that dropped 50 pounds since his senior year of high school. And then, if he didn't do that, he would have a hard time playing on the floor. But a guy that drops 50 pounds, that shows a lot of work ethic, and guys like that tend to have good careers in the NBA, guys that want to get in the gym and do the extra things. And I just heard nothing but good things about the kid, just from other coaches. But yeah, I think he could be a steal at 30 with the Hawks with the way they want to play and just shooting threes.
For sure. Now he's a one and done, I guess. So is he a true freshman?
Right. Yeah. So he was a true freshman last year, but he was a top 10 coming out of high school, and it's amazing that he was like that. He was a little bit overweight, and then he dropped all that weight, and he shot 43% from three. He's 6'9". He's got 7'2" wingspan. He's not unathletic. I think defensively there's some things that he's going to struggle with, primarily in switch situations. And I think he'll definitely struggle with that at the beginning of his career at least. But he's a guy that, with the way that the Hawks want to play, and they got the best shooter at the 1, the 2, and the 5 position arguably in the draft, he's a great fit. And I would compare him to a guy like a Brad Miller.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, he's not as big as Brad Miller was, but certainly
right.
he kind of looks a little bit like that realm. And I really love the way he can spot up on the perimeter, and he seems really comfortable. So I would imagine, a lot of pick and pops. I don't think he's going to get any sort of 5-dribble ISO post-ups down low anyway. So it feels to me like he's going to get a lot of pick and pops, a lot of cuts off of drives and finishes. How is he finishing at the rim?
Yeah, he's a good finisher at the rim. I wouldn't say he's great. Obviously, he's not on the level of a DeAndre Ayton or Marvin Bagley. But with the way that they played, a lot of times he was just hanging out on the perimeter, and it really made it, with his ability to shoot the ball, it made it really tough for Villanova to guard. Especially in the NCAA tournament, when you're in that one-game playoff. I mean, these teams haven't seen a 5-man that is a shooter on the perimeter. I talked to a buddy that coaches at Radford, and they played them in the first round, and they were kind of hanging around for a little bit, and then Spellman hit a couple threes, and they're sitting there like, man, we got no chance, because he's a guy who's probably like 4th or 5th on the scouting report for Villanova. You know what I mean? And a guy like that just really changes the complexion of your defense.
Yeah. And then it says a lot about Villanova that their 5th option pretty much is a first-round draft pick, barely. And let's move on to the second round, because we've got another player that really is in the weeds here that people probably don't know too much about. And so tell us who you want to identify here.
Yeah, I thought of a guy by the name of Kyrie Thomas that got drafted, I think it was 37th to the Pistons. And he's another guy that just got to where he is just by working. My buddy Tim McAllister, who's an excellent basketball coach, he's a video coordinator over at Creighton, and he said, man, when they took him, they sometimes they questioned if they thought he was even good enough to play. And he's a guy that just got in the gym and really improved his game. He said he's one of the top 3 kids that he's ever coached.
Wow.
And that, in terms of coachability, obviously the talent's there, but in terms of coachability and want to get in the gym type stuff, he's a coach's dream. And like I said about Spellman, those are the guys that last in the NBA. They have careers because they can carve out a role, and they're willing to buy into a role. And he's 6'3", but he's got a massive wingspan, 6'9" wingspan, 2-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. And the guy that Coach McAllister compared him to is a guy like Trevor Ariza, who is going to be able to guard. He's going to want to guard the best player, and that's who I think he would start out off of. He can guard 1 through 3. Excellent defense, tough guy, and a guy that can really shoot the ball as well. has some areas to improve, especially with the ball in his hands and making plays for others. But the kid, he's a coach's dream, and those are the guys that make a career of themselves in the NBA. And everything that I've heard about him, it sounds like he's going to be able to do that.
Sure. I mean, he looks like the prototypical 3-and-D guy who,
correct,
who can match up against point guards and shooting guards. Maybe with that wingspan, maybe a small forward or two. But then I love the idea that he can spot up and just sort of be an elite shooter. Do we have any qualms? I'm looking at his form right now, and I really like the way he shoots the ball. He's got nice sway, good rhythm, good turn, good alignment.
Right.
It doesn't seem like he'll have too much struggle to move back that 4 feet to get behind the pro line, right?
Right, yeah, and I think that, the thing with the way that Creighton plays is Coach McDermott down there is one of the best coaches in the country, and he kind of adjusted his style, He used to kind of slow it down and kind of grind out possession by possession, but they started playing much faster this year, and Villanova, another team that plays really fast, but they shoot a lot of threes. Kyrie kind of thrived in that environment, going for threes in transition and spotting up. And, that's the way the NBA is played right now. A guy like that, I think, can really carve out a role in the NBA and find minutes as a young guy. Coming out of the second round, that's all you can really ask for in a guy. No, I think he has a chance to have a good career.
Yeah, I mean, also a guy like Budenholzer will probably love that and really value that, and we'll see it. I think maybe other coaches who don't play rookies often and kind of dismiss that might bury him and never give him a chance. But it looks like Budenholzer definitely would be the kind of guy that'd say, "Oh, we could use this." And certainly, with the way the Pistons season went, they having an influx of talent and new guys is probably a good thing for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Dwayne Casey plans on really running there.
Oh my God, did I say Budenholzer? Whoops.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about Budenholzer with Milwaukee, I'm sure.
Oh, my gosh.
No, I mean, Dwayne Casey, the way that they had played the last few years is kind of just sharing the sugar and making more passes, at least this past year. And I don't know. I think it kind of depends on the personnel they have.
But either way, and again, forgive me, wow, I have a major brain problem. Yeah. But certainly what we did see with Casey was a willingness to play young guys, and they certainly developed pretty well in the little roles that they did have over in Toronto. So that actually is encouraging that he isn't stuck, because he would be the kind of prototypical coach who's like, oh, I'm not going to play rookies. But he does, and he's developed those. So definitely looking forward to seeing how that progresses. And, well, thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on and breaking that down for us. And don't go anywhere, sports fans. We have a great, great show coming up for you after a word from our sponsors. If you're anything like me, then you're all too familiar with crushing credit card debt at outrageous interest rates. I try to just put it out of my mind and make whatever payments I can and ignore the fact that I might never finish paying it off. But that can all change now. Lightstream allows you to lower that interest rate and consolidate your debt so you can finally get a handle on your finances. If you have good credit, you can get a credit card consolidation loan anywhere from $5,000 to $100,000 at a 5.89% APR with autopay. Better yet, if you go to lightstream.com/breakdown, you'll get an additional interest rate discount, all with no fees. The only way to get this discount is to visit lightstream.com/breakdown. So lift the burden of debt off your shoulders, get some breathing room, and visit Lightstream today. Subject to credit approval. Rate includes 0.5% autopay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com for more information.
It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio. Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Coach Nick.
And we're back, sports fans. It's Coach Nick here. This is the B-Ball Breakdown every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on SB Nation Radio and across the FM dial on whatever SB Nation radio station you might have in your market. So we're talking a lot of NBA this week, lots of things coming up and going on and to discuss. So I thought we should get into a little bit of the LeBron decision, part 2. And let's bring on best friend of the breakdown, Dave DuFour at Dave DuFour NBA, to discuss what LeBron is thinking, where his options are, and what might happen. So Dave, on the road, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm here in beautiful eastern Colorado.
All right, you were driving on. You were driving back to the San Antonio, right?
That's right. Yeah, I've been up in Montana hanging out with Phil Jackson for the last few weeks.
Oh, great! How long is this trip going to be for you to drive back?
It's about 26 hours, but it's fun. It's me and the dog, and we're in the van and having a good time. All
right. Well, safe travels, my friend. And let's talk about LeBron, because he's going to be traveling somewhere. I mean, I think the bottom line is, from all we're hearing, it definitely just feels like he is gone, right? Does that feel like that to you?
You know, I've gone back and forth all year. Initially I thought, oh, there's no way he's leaving. Then by Christmas, I was like, oh, he's gone. Then they made all the trades, and I was like, oh, he's back in. And now, I don't know. It feels like he's going to be gone. It definitely feels like L.A. is happening. Every report I've heard is very much LeBron is making this decision more about his family and less about basketball, more about quality of life and less about winning championships and things like that. And to be honest, I wish more guys would take in quality of life when they made these free agent decisions. Is this a place that you want to live? Is this kind of environment you want to be in? So I hope that this is real. I hope this reporting is accurate and this is what he's actually doing just for LeBron James, the human being. Well, selfishly, I want him to stay in the East.
Right. Fair enough, because here's the thing. I mean, he's already won 2. So from that perspective, I could see him sort of being like, okay, I'm on the tail end of my career, and let's make a decision like that. Whereas in 2010, he was completely motivated to win a title, and that's what sort of influenced his decision. So I guess I can see that. Now, it's hard to tell that to someone who's 27 or 26 and, is a great player like Durant, let's say, right? He would probably end up choosing a title over quality of life, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And again, LeBron has played 15 seasons. He's a Hall of Famer. He is, arguably the best player to ever play. If at worst, he's in everyone's top 3. Right. So, I don't think he's got anything left to prove at this point, which is, more where I think some of this stuff is coming from. It's a little bit refreshing. We talk about wanting our players to be empowered, and this is the ultimate in empowerment. It's being able to choose where you want to go. Choose how much you get paid. Choose your teammates. Choose the city. Choose everything. Right? This is it. This is the peak. Yeah. And the beauty of this is, I actually think he'll be able to make this decision without facing any sort of backlash.
Yeah.
He's insulated already. Brought a championship to Cleveland, so the Cleveland fans won't hate him. Not to mention there have been some organizational miscues there that will kind of keep him from taking any blame. I don't know. It feels like LA is going to happen. I don't know why. That's my gut.
All right. And by the way, I think I said he won 2. I mean, he won 3. He won 2 in Miami and 1 with Cleveland. So forgive me, LeBron fans. So here's my thing, because with that in mind, it kind of changes my thought process, which was there was no way he was going to go to LA unless both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George ended up in L.A. Were there to join him because he wouldn't want to waste a year on Ingram and Kuzma and Ball developing, which I believe they can develop into something really, really good, but it would probably take at least another year. So maybe that kind of puts the damper on that whole plan, or that idea where maybe he'd come anyway. But is that what you're thinking? Like he would be willing to play with this young core?
Well, I think that if LeBron shows up, the Lakers are going to do whatever it takes to put a competitor on the court.
Okay.
The Lakers could very easily sign LeBron and Paul George and trade for Kawhi Leonard. It is not outside the realm of possibility. It's just, what are they willing to give up for Kawhi? Are they going to be able to get the Spurs to take on Luol Deng? Or are they going to have to waive and stretch him? There's a lot of different moving parts, but our friend Eric Pincus has kind of laid this out there for the last few months. And, I do think that there's a way to get LeBron, get Paul George, trade for Kawhi, and have a team that, is right there in the conversation with the Golden State Warriors as far as talent goes. Now, will LeBron want to deal with the Lonzo Ball show? Or I guess I should say the LeVar Ball show. I don't know. But I do think that the Lakers have pieces they can move. They can get a competitor together pretty easily. Remember, Trevor Ariza is going to be a free agent this summer. I mean, there are guys out there that could really contribute to a winning team.
That is true. That is very interesting. I'm trying to picture that because it would be too bad. I would think, Lonzo Ball would benefit from playing with LeBron. We know they have some sort of relationship, them two. Not the father, I don't know, but that would be interesting because what would be the starting five? You're talking about Ball, then you have Paul George, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard. That leaves they need a center, I think, right?
Well, so in my mind, Lonzo would be gone. And so, I would love to see a Kawhi, Paul George, LeBron, Trevor Ariza, and a big. I think that could be interesting. Nerlens Noel has got some relationship to LeBron through Clutch Sports. He's going to be out there and probably be cheap. Maybe Brook Lopez wants to come back and on the cheap and play for what's going to be a championship competitor. But that's a team that, you want to talk about positional versatility and being able to switch 1 through 5. I mean, that would be incredible. It's a long shot, a lot of moving parts. But the Lakers are the front runners to get Kawhi. I have to think they're the front runners to get Paul George and LeBron. I mean, they haven't been in this position in quite a while.
Right. I guess the biggest issue now is where the Spurs even dare trade into the Lakers. We've heard reports that they wouldn't, and I know we're talking about that with coming up with Paul Garcia. But certainly, my take on it is that the Lakers have the most to offer the Spurs for Kawhi.
Absolutely, but if you're the Lakers and you're pretty sure you can just sign Kawhi as a free agent next summer, how much do you give up? But if you're the Spurs, how do you not take whatever the best deal available is? This idea that they won't trade him into the West is kind of silly, and that's a very old school mentality. Like, we're all smarter than this. You got to take the best available deal, and the Spurs aren't necessarily going to be, if they get rid of Kawhi, I don't think they're going to be championship competitors for a while. So you got to take the best package. And if that's, if you can get Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, and a pick, you're doing really well. I mean, Brandon Ingram was a number 2 pick a couple of years ago and has looked really good. So, I mean, he may be a guy that develops into your superstar of the future. Yeah. And Kuzma was all rookie of the year. He was on the, rookie of the year, all rookie first team or whatever. Kuzma is a guy, he's going to get you points. I think he's going to be a guy who can score somewhere between 15 and 18 a night for 10 years. So those are good pieces. And whether you hang on to them or you flip them for something bigger, I think the Spurs have got to just take whatever the best deal is. And if that one's on the table, you got to jump at it. But I don't think they've gotten that sort of deal yet.
And those two guys reek of the kind of Spurs players that they would be able to get even more out of in their system. So let's pivot, though, to other players because there's some other news as far as the Nuggets are concerned. And that is that Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets look like they're getting close to figuring out how to make a max deal happen for him. And so I'm curious your thoughts on how that plays out and whether or not you think that's a good deal for all parties involved.
Well, I definitely think Nikola Jokic is a franchise center, and the market dictates that's a max, and so he's getting the max. It's going to be tough for the Nuggets because it puts them into an awkward tax situation. They're going to have to get off some money, probably. While you're hearing Fareed and a pick be floated out there. Darrell Arthur's another guy they're going to want to move. I'm sure they're listening on Plumlee, but good luck moving that $13 million a year. But yeah, Jokic, I mean, he's the fulcrum of your offense. He's your most important player. Not as bad on defense as it appears, when you actually dig in a little bit. He's not a complete, liability on defense. But what he brings to the table offensively is just special. And his ability to create for others from the elbow and he can step out and shoot the three himself, and he's fantastic in the post. So, he's definitely a max player. That's a no-brainer. If he had hit the open market, he would have gotten at least what he's getting from the Nuggets. Like any team that needed a center would throw a max offer at Nikola Jokic.
And it's clear to you that this is going to happen. He will accept the maximum. He wants it from the Denver Nuggets? Yeah,
I believe so. I think that, unlike the Chandler Parsons situation, when the Rockets let him out, and made him a restricted free agent, and he signed with the Mavericks. I think that the Nuggets have a good working relationship with his agent, and they're working things out. I'm sure there was a lot of discussion all year about, hey, this is our plan going forward.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to it because I think we've forgotten they didn't make the playoffs. They kind of fell off the radar toward the end there, but which is too bad because I feel like if Jokic had been in the playoffs this year, he would have awoken everybody across the NBA landscape to how good he really is. And because I've forgotten too. I mean, the guy can get a rebound and dribble a ball up and then throw a great dime all in one play from the high post for a layup.
Yeah, and it's easy to forget how good this team was. They just missed the playoffs, and they were without Paul Millsap for a large portion of the season. So, one of their best players was out. I mean, this is their huge free agent signing last summer, and he was out for, over half the season. So, this is a team I expect to make the playoffs this year, I think. They stand to have a better record and do better this year just because of health, unless they have more bad health luck. They arguably could have been the 3 seed in the West if Millsap had been healthy all year. I mean, with how 3 through 9 and 10 was bunched together, I mean, it wouldn't have taken many bounces to get them there.
That's right. Well, great point, all, and I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today, Dave, to break that stuff down for us. And don't go anywhere, sports fans. We're going to be back with lots more NBA content coming up right after these words from our sponsor.
It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio. Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Coach Nick.
And we're back, sports fans, for another great segment on the B-Ball Breakdown. As always, it's Coach Nick here, joining you every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. And that's other times in the rest of the country, wherever you are. I'll rely on you to figure that out. And we're always streaming on SB Nation Radio and anywhere else on the FM dial that you are receiving this. So I am excited to talk about this next segment because it's on everyone's mind and it has a lot of connections to other players in free agency. So let's get into it with Paul Garcia, who's a Spurs beat writer for ProjectSpurs.com and a friend of the Breakdown. So, Paul, thanks for coming on the show, and let's talk Kawhi Leonard.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Coach Nick, for bringing me on. Giving me this opportunity.
No problem. So, listen, it's been a little bit of a long and sordid tale for over a year now. The Kawhi hasn't really played at all for this past year. What's the latest on what we know with what his intentions are in free agency? And, actually not even free agency, his intentions are for coming back to the Spurs or not?
From the Spurs' perspective, R.C. Buford on draft night basically said that the Spurs do want to keep him in their plans long term. He didn't give any kind of clarification on the trade rumors, on whether or not they're going to offer him the Supermax. He just basically said they want Kawhi and his family to be part of the Spurs organization long term, but they will basically seek their options in the meantime. So basically, we've heard the reports that they have been getting trade proposals. They've been putting those proposals on their board, but they're not actually engaging teams and actually getting into the real negotiations here.
Okay, fair enough. So they're kind of just like monitoring it, but are they even answering the phone? Is that the question?
It appears they are answering the phone at least. It's changed. The tone's changed from the different reports that have come out. Originally it was that they weren't even answering the phone. They weren't giving you any kind of perspective on where they're at. But now they're at least saying to other teams, okay, give us your offers, and we'll kind of set them aside and place them elsewhere. The only team that I've heard that we've seen reported that they had a bad interaction with was the Lakers, where basically it sounded like they basically almost hung up the phone on them.
Oh, wow. And do we have any other details as to why they wanted to hang up the phone?
Not necessarily. The word shouldn't be hang up the phone, but the call was very short, and it's really because this is obviously the team that publicly Kawhi wants to go to. This is where he wants to end up in L.A. He's kind of forcing the Spurs' hand in terms of their leverage because he's already saying through the media that he will not re-sign elsewhere unless it's unless he gets traded to L.A. with the Lakers. Okay, wow. So that's actually is that like on the record official? We know that that's what Kawhi wants to do. Not through him. That's through like Woj and some of the ESPN reporters and things like that. Yeah, nothing's actually come from Kawhi's actual mouth. He hasn't been on camera since March 7th. And the same thing for the Spurs from their perspective. Everything's being reported through different outlets.
Sure enough, fair enough. But it's kind of weird to think that like Kawhi has a group of people around him who are leaking or whatever. But I suppose in the NBA, that's what the reality is these days. Even for someone who's kind of quiet and doesn't have an entourage, I suspect. But let's talk a little bit about the Kawhi perspective because, how did we get to the point where he went from the darling of the Spurs, and they developed him, and really, he's supposed to retire there, like in the same line as Tim Duncan. How do we get from there to why that he seems so upset that he just wants to get out?
Basically, the what's been reported here is that it's because of the injury situation with his right quadriceps, quad injury. Basically, something happened in the summertime where he came into training camp and he was already seeking outside medical opinion. He basically felt that the Spurs have tried to force him to play, even though he wasn't feeling 100% okay. From the Spurs' perspective, all their medical testing has said you're good to go. We're not trying to put you out there to get hurt in any kind of way. You're a franchise player. But from Kawhi's perspective in his camp, he felt that the injury was still lingering. He didn't feel comfortable, so he sought one opinion outside early in the preseason. Then by January, he switched doctors on his outside opinion. And then we've seen the back and forth through the media where Pop has basically said Kawhi and his group, you have to ask them when he's coming back. There's been frustration on both sides. Kawhi's camp says that he did want to come back, but he just couldn't because he was never 100%. From the Spurs' side, they've been saying they're not trying to rush him, but their testing shows that he was fine and he was ready to play. But they did give him that space to go to New York and rehab there. And now that the season's over, he's back in San Diego, where reportedly he's close to 100% already. So it's just been over the injury basically is where a lot of this started falling apart, this relationship. And then, of course, it didn't help that Tony Parker made that comment, which was taken out of context, where he says that he felt like his injury was 100 times worse and he came back quicker. By
the way, so that's what it always looked like, and I always sort of scratched my head wondering why Tony Parker wanted to be so kind of rude or whatever the word would be against a teammate. So what was the context? Why shouldn't it have been taken so poorly?
Yeah, it's basically the headlines. Aggregation took it to the extreme. Basically, in just an off day interview, the Spurs were off one day. Tony gave they asked Tony about Kawhi's injury, and he basically gave him like hope and and basically like guidance. He basically said, we're really hoping for the best for him. I've had injuries throughout the past. You got to stay strong. Give him more motivation. Okay. But in that part, he did mention, I'm injured too, and mine was 100 times worse. But Tony wasn't like saying it in any kind of specific tone, but when the aggregation sites took that headline, they basically blasted it everywhere, and that's where it became a story where everyone started talking about it. It
sounded like Tony wanted to be like this. Look at this wimp who's not coming back when I had a worse injury and I came back faster. I think that was the idea, right? That came out of that.
Yeah, that's basically what it looks like on paper. But when you actually go back and watch the video clip, which you can find at different places, you can tell that it was definitely taken out of context. And of course, that headline got to Kawhi's side, and of course that's what now is reported that he's upset with Tony as well. Lately, you've seen David Robinson kind of have some remarks about him. Bruce Bowen, former Spurs, and then even Manu Ginobili during the season was basically saying that he's not here, he's not basically with the guys even when he's rehabbing. Like when you're a leader, you gotta kind of be around your teammates even if you're hurt. And so there was just all sorts of shots basically from Kawhi's side that he's seeing that's being thrown at him right now.
Interesting, because usually, the Spurs are so tight-lipped from everybody across the board that you wouldn't ever hear a thing like Tony Parker or what Manu said or any of these things. So I guess that's sort of indicative of how, I don't want to know if the word desperate is the right word, but certainly we've come a long way from what we're used to with the Spurs and how they deal with the media. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's honestly like it's just like a 360. I mean, everything they were the most secretive organization, and now you're seeing all these different reports, and it almost like there was a few weeks ago where it was reported by ESPN that Pop was heading to San Diego to meet with Kawhi, but then Yahoo reported that he already met with Kawhi that day. It's almost like that DeAndre Jordan Clippers level a few years ago when everything – you just don't even know. Like there's so many different perspectives coming into the story, so it's even hard to tell who's even telling the truth, like who's getting the most accurate information.
Well, last I had seen, Popovich was going to be in L.A. to meet with him a few days ago. Did that ever happen?
Yes, that happened last Tuesday in San Diego. They met there was no actual there was no contract negotiations, or it was just more so just to finally meet face to face. ESPN reported that Kawhi had purposely been trying to avoid Popovich in this meeting, but we don't know if that's factual or not. That's just based on their reporting. But yeah, they actually did meet face to face. The Express News reported that there's no set date yet for a second face to face meeting between those two.
Okay, and I imagine, Pop seems to have a charm about him that would probably, if they did meet one-on-one, he would kind of appeal to a lot of different things. With Kawhi, he probably could convince him to come back, I guess. But I don't know. What do you think? What are the chances of him coming back to the Spurs are for this year?
I mean, Spurs fans don't like to hear it, but I just don't think that it's going to happen based right now. They still have some time just because of the timeline that they're on. Free agency's coming next week. It starts. How do you build your team? How do you even start these negotiations with prospective free agents if you don't even know if your best player is going to stick around or not? Now, the Spurs are saying, out loud that they're playing the long game, that they're basically have him under contract up until next season. Now, there are some different dates here. They can offer that Supermax on July 16th, and he has till October 16th to sign it. So if they're trying to fix the relationship and then offer him that Supermax, well, then they have basically their deadline's October 16th. But if not, then you have the trade deadline in February. Do you even want to bring him into training camp if he's still unhappy and says he's out of here in a year? So from the Spurs, from their perspective, it's really tough right now to see the situation that they're in, especially with how soon free agency is approaching here.
I hear you. And in fact, if Kawhi ends up leaving, then it seems like it's a total rebuild mode for them. Is that fair to say?
I would say yes. I think a lot of us, here in the media in San Antonio would say that. But Pop is, still part of the organization where it doesn't look like he wants to go down that road. I'm not sure that Pop at his age, I think he's 69 years old. There's been reports that he might retire in 2020. So I'm not sure that he will want to do a full rebuild. I think he will want a few more competitive seasons before they go in that direction. So I would look at, if they do have to trade him, getting some sort of impact player, and then of course with some future assets.
Sure. Well, what I was thinking was if the Lakers really wanted to get him, and I know people have said, the Spurs would never deal with somebody in the Western Conference or someone like the Lakers, which I just think that would be foolish to have a policy like that without ever looking at a deal. But it seems to me the Lakers could easily offer someone like, here's the problem with the Lakers is they're obviously trying to get LeBron. And the only way LeBron comes is in my opinion, is they would have to get Kawhi and Paul George to join the Lakers. And so what I would do there is would the Spurs say no if the Lakers offered Ingram, Kuzma and a first round pick? If that's their last possible proposal, I think that they might have to do something like that. I don't think they want to. I think they're going to definitely try to work with Boston or Philly first. Those are probably their two targets in terms of trading partners. And you've seen that Philly's already put Markelle Fultz reportedly on. They had him on draft night in a different type of trade. So they're already willing to move Markelle Fultz if they have to. So I think that the Spurs would definitely try to see what kind of assets they can pry from Boston or Philly first, and then at last resort, maybe dealing with the Lakers. Because after July 1st, if they do trade Kawhi to the Lakers, they don't have to take in Luol Deng's contract, but that's still a problem for the Lakers side because of bringing those three All-Stars together. They wouldn't have the money to do that. Right. It's interesting because I just can't picture anybody else offering that good of a deal. The first-round pick might not be that great for the Lakers if they end up getting LeBron, obviously, but it's still a first-round pick. And, Fultz is a bit of an unknown. And, when you're comparing that to Kuzma and Ingram, those are just two guys in my mind that seems to me that the Spurs would be like, we got to have them for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, that goes back to what's being attached at Fultz. There's reports that Dario Saric will be included in some sort of deal. The Sixers picked up that 2021 pick from Miami in the recent trade on draft night. Then you look at Boston and you ask, what are they willing to trade? Are they willing to trade Jaylen Brown's contract with a few more? Or are they willing to maybe move Gordon Hayward or Kyrie Irving? So there's all sorts of – I really think that San Antonio would definitely engage first with Philly and Boston, and then at last resort work with L.A. And, of course, they'd want Kuzma and Brandon Ingram. The tricky part for the Spurs too is that Kawhi's his camp is basically saying that he wants to end up in LA, and so you're right where the Spurs won't get that good of assets from Philly or Boston or whatever other trading partner, and he may just have to end up in LA. Right,
and I just feel like the Lakers are under such pressure to get LeBron, and even though LeBron's at the end of his career, I think it's a no-brainer to get 2 most likely elite years from him before he really starts to fade, even though we're probably seeing some fading on the defensive end as it is. But the star power and all those things would be too much to ignore from the Lakers. So I think the Spurs would be foolish to not pick up the phone, and they could probably play a little bit more hardball. Maybe they get a third player out of that. They could probably avoid to some degree any kind of rebuild and stay competitive and maybe even do well. So we'll have to see. But I can't thank you enough, Paul, for coming on the show and breaking this down for us and giving us the complete up-to-date what's going on with Kawhi.
Yes, thanks, Coach Nick, for bringing me on.
And then real quickly, what are the odds right now if you had to put a percentage on whether he stays or not?
I'd say 60% he's gone, 40% he's staying.
Well, there you go.
Now.
Well, that's Paul Garcia, the Spurs beat writer for ProjectSpurs.com, and we'll have to find out how accurate that is as we progress in the summer. And don't go anywhere, sports fans. We'll be right back after the word from our sponsors, and this is the B-Ball Breakdown.
It's the B-Ball Breakdown with Coach Nick on SB Nation Radio. Coming to you live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Here's Coach Nick.
So there you have it, sports fans. An action-packed episode is in the books again. And to seal in our practice, let's review what we went over. So we talked with Paul Garcia about the Kawhi situation. And it seems like it's definitely 50-50 that they're going to trade him, maybe a little better than that. And I don't know. It definitely feels like the Lakers have the best thing to offer for them, and I think they should take it. So we're going to have to find out what happens there. Then we had Dave DuFour coming on talking about LeBron. I think everyone is pretty clear that he's going to leave. Usually in those situations, when they don't say, I love Cleveland, I want to die here, buried in a Cleveland uniform, then that means they're leaving almost every time. And we certainly haven't heard anything different from LeBron's camp to indicate that he wants to stay or wants to, be buried in a Cavs uniform. So be ready to watch out for that. I'll have a great video on where he should go, so stay tuned for that over on the YouTube channel. We also had Jeff Diependbrock talking about Kyrie Thomas out of Creighton, who I think is going to be a nice addition to the Pistons there. And he played 3 years in college. Is already very nicely developed with Coach McDermott there. And then Omari Spellman out of Villanova, a guy we've seen a lot in the tournament this past year, and he's got a ring on his finger. So he's going to be an excellent addition to the Hawks, who are rebuilding. And he should get plenty of opportunities to play and fit in. So a lot of great stuff. Don't forget, over on the YouTube channel right now, we have a top 3 steals of the draft video. And we went through some really important players there that really, I think, were going to help. And one of them is Michael Porter Jr., who no one's really seen much at all. But if they can get anything out of him, and he develops even after a year or so of that back injury healing, then, man, at 14th, it's a great steal for them. So be on the lookout for him and seeing if he can get on the court at all this year and be effective. And as we go forward, he's got a lot of skill, a lot of athletic ability. So look out for him. So listen, I can't thank you guys enough for coming on the show and being part of this every week. It's been a terrific ride the last 19 weeks we've been doing this. Wow, it's pretty crazy. So, again, don't forget to check out everything over on our Twitter handle as well. We have a lot of great stuff. I bought a good quick video analysis there every day, and a great conversation where we go back and forth and talk to people and answer questions and argue and whatnot because, well, after all, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You win,